Trading Simplified.
Oh, there we are. Scared me. Always sneaks up on me.
What's Hello, everybody, and welcome to Delta Phi. It is a beautiful Wednesday here in Chicago, as you can see in the background. You know, is that just me echoing, or?
I think so.
Triple balls.
Okay, well, I've got that taken care of now. But anyway, yeah. So thanks for coming, everybody. We've got a really exciting episode of Delta Phi today. Of course, you know, myself, Daniel, aka Cryptomessiah. I'm joined by my hosts, my other hosts, Rob, Levy, Dan Gunsberg, and RandomTask 555. Today, we're going to talk about a lot of shit. We're going to talk about psychology. Which, you know, I think is something that's important that not many other places discuss. You know, we'll talk about our feelings over the last month, you know, and it's important to take note of those feelings. It's important to remember what you felt like at the bottom, what you felt like at the top, you know, just what the feeling in the air was if you're on crypto Twitter or somewhere like that, because you can, if you actually write this information down and you really make, you know, a commitment to memorizing and committing this information to memory, you're actually giving yourself a huge advantage here, because in the future, when we have that brutal dip and, you know, you just feel like shit and you feel like your bags are never going to come back, you're going to think to yourself, you know, hey, well, I've already kind of been here before. Of course, you know, everybody's looking at Bitcoin, looking at Ethereum right now. You know, we're seeing some really nice reversals. It finally looks like we're seeing some strength on Ethereum, Bitcoin. So fingers crossed, in the next month, 2 months, we're going to see some really nice action on altcoins. What do you guys think?
I've been aping around a lot this week, and it's amazing what this chop will do to you. You know, one day it's this, one day it's like conserve, protect, and then the next day, you know, Bitcoin moves up $2,000 and suddenly altcoins are popping, and you know, I'm getting antsy again. So I bought some bags today. I bought a few, got a few longs going.
I was just thinking that it was odd that when you said what it feels like to be on bottom and be on top, that Rob didn't say that's what she said.
I missed his cue there big time.
At Hardwood.
I was thinking it. I cannot physically turn that off. It literally comes every time. I cannot turn it off.
I mean, it's a classic joke. You know, I can't really blame you too much for that.
It took me 2 years to get good at that, and then it was dead. Everyone's like, bro, that was so 2016, bro. I was like, fuck.
But you know what? Yesterday, I mean, honestly, I came into the morning U.S. session thinking the Asian session, they just bought a bunch of shit. Everything's on highs. And literally the 9:30 a.m. Eastern time bell rang, and they fucking pounded Bitcoin. I mean, it was like a sell program that it was like sell it sloppy. And everything went from feeling good to all of a sudden shit was like hard offered. And the best thing about it was that my alt BTC watch list on TradingView, which I call Satoshis, that was still green almost across the board for most of the day. So alts were actually hanging in there. There were buyers of alts yesterday in that carnage. Now, I think it got a little bit scary and emotional for some people. We're like, holy shit, this thing.
Oh, dude, I was scared.
It went hard sellers out of nowhere. Honestly, it made me feel a little bit uncomfortable, but the alts were telling. Those BTC pairs hung in there. And then tonight, overnight, Asian session, they fucking ape into everything again. So it looks like the Asians are on top here. I think that we've got a role reversal since the year of the ox started.
I mean, If anybody can pump coins, it's Asian, you know, people of Asian culture. Like, you know, when we look back and we look at some of the most incredible pumps there's really ever been, you know, a lot of those pumps were led by Koreans.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. You remember the BitThumb, what was it? Like
Kimchi Premium.
Bcash even, or whatever that, like Dragon Slayer. And then they just like nuked this thing north.
Out of all their coins, you know, I think QTUM, QTUM, you know, that was branded at one point as kind of the Korean Ethereum, and you know that shit went absolutely ape shit.
ICX, Icon, 120x at the late 2017.
I mean, that's just extremely impressive, you know, to see.
I was in that ICO. It was probably my favorite thing of 2017.
Just really quick, guys. We've got 130 people in the audience. If you haven't already, hit that like button. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel. I know that's cringe, but this is YouTube, so we have to play by the YouTube rules. That would help us out a lot in terms of algorithmic selection, et cetera, et cetera. If you guys do enjoy our content, if not, hit the thumbs down. That's okay too. It's the engagement that counts.
Yeah, I mean, hey, it's
but you better
free.
not fucking hit that thumbs down. I swear
It's
to God,
free, and it always, makes us feel good. I'll tell you what. More now than ever, it's really important to understand your trading plan. Like, what are you trading against? I'd like to know what you guys are trading against. I kind of like flip flop, admittedly, where I'm like, I'm going to stack sats, and then Bitcoin gets shaky, and I'm like, I'm protecting USD. But right now, there's a lot of BTC pairs that are doing well. And if you don't give a shit about Bitcoin price and you just want to stare at those entirely independent of everything else, they're looking strong. Some of them. Alpha today, we're going to talk about, for example, picked up some today. When Gunny calls me and he's like, hey, this is something I'm looking at. I don't let it slide like a lot of, you hear mentions like that all the time. When Gunny says it, I listen, and I looked at the chart and it was like a perfect setup from what I look for. Versus Bitcoin though. And so I got to look away from Bitcoin chart, which I think could consolidate in here, which means like 8K swings. I don't give a shit. This one's a trade versus Bitcoin. What do you guys trade against typically? What's your like base portfolio? Are you thinking sats? Are you thinking USD?
Who's first?
I trade, versus USD. I used to be sat minded, back in the day in 2017. Of course, I was just trying to stack Bitcoin. We're stacking Bitcoin is still like part of the goal, but ultimately I'm stacking Bitcoin to get US dollars. So I guess the Bitcoin pairings are a factor, in my trading, plan. Of course, I want to be in something that's going to outperform Ethereum. In an alt season, Ethereum is going to be outperforming Bitcoin. So the real question becomes, how can I construct a portfolio? What can I invest in to where I can outperform Ethereum under the assumption that Ethereum is going to be outperforming Bitcoin as well. So all of those things kind of factor into the trading decision. But at the end of the day, it's the dollars that count. I don't want fucking sats. And I understand that some people are sats gang and want to be stacking all the time and think Bitcoin's going to be the new global reserve currency. And you know what? It very well may be. And I'm not going to be the guy that says no fucking way on that, because Bitcoin has already just exceeded everybody's expectations in every way possible, and I don't see that trend really ceasing at any time in the near future. But at the end of the day, I'm here to get more dollars. I don't see an end to dollars either. And a lot of people want to call doom and gloom and the end of the world and the end of the U.S. economy, blah blah blah. But I don't at least think in the near to medium term that getting more dollars and then finding, another way to invest those dollars that's not crypto, whether that be real estate or, whether you invest in stonks or, whatever the fuck you want to do. I don't think that's a bad idea.
Yeah, I'm the same way. And I think after Bitcoin rugged a lot of people after 2017, we all went from sat stackers to USDT protectors. I'm the same way. I've got goals around USD and a lot of people, and I'm one of them that has some fear around the global economy and the US dollar and the stable currencies. But like, okay, 2% inflation. Oh no, we got crazy inflation this year, 6%. I sleep okay with 6% swings. It's those 25% in 3 days we saw last week. Longer term, I'm more comfortable, moving in and out of stables, when the tide isn't quite right.
I think Messi got married, and all of a sudden he went from sats to dollars.
You know what? The transition
What a
from
fucking
sats
simp.
to dollars actually did happen about the time I got married.
I know it did.
Say that.
I know it did.
I wonder if there's anything to that.
Well, I think you should speak with her and tell her that you should change your denominator back to sats. Very much.
Yeah. Next time when I show her my portfolio, I'll denominate in sats instead. That's another joke. You never ever show your wife your portfolio because that's typically the top. It was certainly the top. Maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, I still remember I was riding with my wife to the dog park, and I looked at my portfolio, and it was just one of those oh my god moments. I was like, damn, I'm that's a lot. So I was like, babe, I don't ever talk about this shit with her. That's not her wheelhouse. I don't want her to be stressed out about it or anything like that. So, babe, check out, look at this fucking balance, my phone. That was literally the highest balance my portfolio has had this year. So
dude, that is so fucked. I did the exact same thing. I didn't even realize it till you said it. I was sitting on the couch watching a show and I was like, holy shit, honey, look. And, and she's like, what is that? I was like, that's US dollars. Because for Canadians, we get to like add on 25%, right? She's like, oh my God. And I calculated, I was like, look at that. And
that's another
come to think of it, that was the
though.
exact high. I've never seen it.
I should start denominating in CAD instead of USD.
Yeah, it makes you feel rich, man. Yeah, that's the best. Like that's got to be the best part of working in US dollars is that when it comes time to like pay myself, I'm like, 30% on top.
Man, growing up, I grew up, right across the border, and we used to go over to the border for the nightlife, and having knowing that every dollar you were going to get about $1.30 back was worth of entertainment was amazing.
Yeah. No, I really enjoy that little bonus.
What do
you got, Rob?
I got something for you because this morning I get up, I do my routine, and I see a tweet notification. One of your gorgeous charts. I think there's some of the sexiest charts in markets, period. I mean, sexy. If you're not looking at these charts, I think you're insane. But the Bitcoin rally overnight just tagged one of your levels that you had laid out, and it just felt so right to me that this little squeeze up overnight tagged a level. So I wanted to, if you could pull that up and
yeah, let's swap to the chart there, Johnny. That was our cue. There we go. Okay, let me find it.
Yeah,
it was this one. Yeah, I know, dude. I'm telling you, man, these things are fucked. Pump chaser zone yesterday on the market update. I was just sitting here kind of like, I'm not really trading the leverage right now, but if I was, I'd be thinking long from this pump chaser zone, always looking back like, I probably should have traded that. But I'm doing work, doing other things. And then, just this morning thinking like we're coming into short RLZ resistance. The tweet was right on this line. I mean, I wasn't saying it has to go down here, but it's fascinating how often it does at these
levels to look at. If you're long and you're feeling heavy, like if you aped into a little bit too heavy of a position, like those are the areas where if you're going to go to sleep, you put your offers in. If it's a scalp, if it's short term, throw offers in at some of these levels that are laid out there. It just makes all the sense in the world, and to see it happen time after time, it's just remarkable.
I agree with that, and I can't tell you how. I was just thinking about this the other day. Like, I can't tell you how many times I put orders in at like levels where if I was sitting in front of a chart looking at it and trading, I would be like, no fucking way it's going to hit this.
Yep.
And then I'll put it in there, go about my day, go to sleep, wake up the next day, and like miraculously it's wicked like to that price, sometimes through it. But generally my best fills historically have always been that way. It's amazing. You
taught me that, Dan. Being a volatility trader my whole professional career, I really didn't get into the technical side as deeply as just some straight flat price traders. But watching you the first year that we were sitting together, it's amazing how these levels hit. It's crazy.
I mean, yeah, the right when you guys say that, I got to think of this Ren chart that we've been tracking since early January. And this, I mean, I'd love to sit here and say like, I sold that level. I mean, I wasn't even trading this thing directly. I was using it for analysis. I was like, hey, look, cool, PRZ. And then after about 3 weeks ago, I was like, fuck it. I'm going to start setting orders in this thing. I'm ready. It just takes enough examples. Like Dan said, you don't always know that these things are coming, and you couldn't imagine they're going to come in. And then after you see it happen enough times, you're like, fuck it, I can just start trading this. Yeah. I mean, look at this thing. Just a pie in the sky, absolute moonshot, and it just pings. Like, I can't get over it.
I'm not even like,
still blows my mind.
Yeah, I'm not even like I don't know half the shit, to be honest, that like I see some of the TA guys on Twitter, like all the technical analysis they do. Like, to me, it's like technical analysis is just like a visualization of market psychology. And so like, I kind of look at it as like, how important was this price? What was going on at this moment when it got there? Like, how did it get there? Somebody, like a friend of mine today was asking me about like, where do you think Bitcoin's going to top out at? And he's like watching like TikToks and like all these kind of, some of these these guys that are on TikTok and things like that, like talking about like, oh, this rally is going to top out in September. And he's like, do you think he's right? And I was like, I don't fucking know if he's right or not. Like, what I know is that the long-term trend is up right now. And like, when we get to 145,000 and like a $3 trillion valuation for Bitcoin, for the Bitcoin network, like, I'll ask myself, like, how did it get there? Did it go on a wick? Is it completely parabolic? Like, is it accepting this price? And it's just like kind of these things that, to me, that like after 20 plus years, you kind of just get used to, like, it doesn't matter the market. They somewhat become widgets in that way. But market psychology, unless you're dealing in something that's like super fundamental or something that like if you're trading like the absolute short end of the yield curve, like 30-day Fed funds or 2-year treasury notes, things like that, like that game is a whole different ball game. But like in general, like market psychology acts the same way. Like you get a parabolic rally, like gravity's going to take it back down at some point. You wick up to something, it's not going to stay there. Like you kind of have to be there to see, like, is it going to accept this at this price? What's going on in the world otherwise? Like, is the reason that it went to this price, like, is that story already baked in? Like I look at things like that, and just for TA, like honestly, like it's not even a secret to me. Like for Bitcoin, like I use a 12-period EMA and a 26-period EMA on longer term timeframes, and usually just try to buy the fucking dip off of those. And when one crosses the other, like I'm kind of changing my opinion a little bit. And but again, like I'll use that as like one indicator, but really I'm looking at like psychology as a whole to make a determination of what to do.
I just saw, RandomTask had that total coin market cap chart up, excluding Bitcoin. And looking at that, of course, it's not the perfect thing to chart, of course, because recent candles, recent prices reflected on that chart, or levels, or whatever you want to call them, include more altcoins than existed, in the past. So one could argue that
it's even more bullish.
Well, that we're seeing, that kind of inflation.
That's a good point
on the chart. But at the same time, just looking at things like this, and I know people get all antsy about, or get butthurt about charting BTCD, or looking at things like that. And it's not a perfect thing to look at, but looking at something like that, I think, gives you good context as to what the altcoin market is doing as a whole, and to see that total altcoin market cap growing beyond the all-time high for that total altcoin market cap does show growth in the sector, and based on what the chart looks like, it looks like there's room for continued growth as well. One of the interesting things that we talked about in the last episode, and maybe even the episode before, was just how similar the timelines are between 2017 and 2021. And just a refresher for anybody that wasn't here, basically most altcoins in 2017 had this initial rally from early January until early February. And those rallies were 500, 600, 700% rallies. They weren't pussy rallies. I mean, these were some really, really, really nice moves. But most of those rallies, from maybe the first or second week in February to to the end of February, some even the beginning of March, most of those rallies actually retraced around 50 to 60%, which is, once again, the exact same situation and timeline that we're seeing right now. And interestingly enough, when we look at a lot of these altcoin charts, many of them do seem to have found some kind of bottom, around February, the end of February, which is still fitting with that timeline. So it's going to be really interesting to continue to monitor the altcoin market. And if we continue to mirror this 2017 timeline, that could mean that the real alt season, the face melter, the actual euphoria could be just around the corner. And it could be actually beginning as soon as the next 2 weeks, and last through the end of June, which it'd be something to witness. People think
it'd be pretty incredible
that they know what euphoria feels like. And look, if you have $50,000 and you turn that into $200,000, trust me, like that feels euphoric. But true euphoria, and we're talking like I'm a fucking genius. I'm going to tell my granddad to invest his money with me. Like, I'm going to tell my dad, fuck you, I have more money than you. True euphoria is when that guy that has a $50,000 portfolio finds himself a millionaire and starts thinking, well, I made $1 million, why not another 4 or 5 million? That's only a 5 or 6 here. And we have not gotten there yet. I mean, there's millionaires on Twitter. There's guys flexing their profits. There's guys posting their P&L, but we haven't gotten to the point yet where literally it doesn't matter who you are, how fucking stupid you are, or what you're invested in. Like, you are rich. And that's where I feel like we're headed.
Yeah, I got in May 2017 I had $2,000 in my savings account. I lived in a basement apartment. I had $15,000 of student debt. I listened to a Joe Rogan podcast with Andreas Antonopoulos, and I was like, fuck, Bitcoin. This sounds cool. I'm going to look into that. And it was in the middle of that May spring rally, and I got hooked. Ethereum was $60 and it was $80 and it was $120. I was like, oh my God. And I ate
every fucking day you check your Blockfolio, it's
every day.
It just goes up. You can refresh it, and every time you refresh it, the number is higher. Like, that's euphoria feeling.
And I got hooked and I got sucked into it. And by the end of that year, and as you're describing this euphoria, I know exactly what you mean, because it was like, you get 100,000, you're like, holy fuck, like this is real. Okay, I'm nervous. And then I cash out. I don't know what's going on. I'm certainly not euphoric. I'm like scared shitless. I'm in disbelief. I'm paying off my debt. I'm scrambling to repay my initial. And then, a month later, it's September, it's October. And then suddenly it's like, holy shit, I have $400,000 or whatever it was, and then you're thinking, well, it's never going down. New paradigm. I nailed it. And you're telling people to buy, like, the narrative for going back down disappears. And so to your point, I think the fact that so many people are still like, when top, this top, that top, like there's no euphoria. There's still a weird element of disbelief. It's going to be interesting to see how
I feel like the top is just going to be it. If it plays out, like I'll put it at like I'm like 90% bid that it's exactly like it's going to happen so fast and be so violent. And then the retrace will be twice as violent with massive volume. And even then, you're going to get a chance to like do a retest. So if you miss it, like going to chase the low and puking out of it is probably a bad idea. And just hope to God that it's like you have a bunch of orders in at wacky prices that we talked about earlier. Like you go to fucking bed one night and wake up and they're filled. And I can guarantee if you haven't been here, most of you will buy them back. And then that'll be the beginning of the bear market. And you'll end up puking those at really bad prices because everybody's done that at least once.
Yeah, and that's actually something we need to talk a lot about over the next few months. And what we started looking at in the newsletter is how to hold on to your shit. And through the first phase of the bear market, everyone's going to be out there talking about buying dips and the next highs. It's so hard to spot. It's so hard to recognize, and that's why I'm not really trying to call it. I'm just trying to like pull out along the way. So when it comes, my last bag gets wrecked, but it's like, it's been good.
Messi, what was like in 2017? What was that like peak moment of something that was going on in Twitter, or like where you were like, this is so fucking out of control?
Well,
this is like it. I mean, it's beyond insanity how euphoric everybody is.
I mean, it was the celebrities and shit last time, which we've already come across that hurdle and jumped over it. And I mean, they're just kind of part of the action this time. I do remember from, my own personal psychological state, I had zero plans for what to do with my money. The only plan that I had for my money was to, get another 2-3x on it. I wasn't even thinking about an exit. And I still remember I had this, compulsion to, to talk about crypto to my family and things like that. And they were finally interested in speaking about this kind of stuff to me. So, this go around, I'm definitely keeping that, a little bit, what is it called? Closer to the vest or whatever.
Yeah.
If anybody wants to talk about crypto with me, I'll talk about the technology. I'll talk about, how lucrative it is. But, for me, this time, it's not so much like, I don't care if anybody knows, that I have money or that I'm successful or anything like that. I'm totally cool with what I've got. One of the number one signs that people have gotten too rich is people start showing their asses on Twitter. People start taking this newfound money and, they're trying to fill some kind of void. So, they're going to start posting all of this crazy nice shit that they're buying and, start flexing on everybody. And, money changes people.
What do we talk about? Like the best trader actually is the guy that doesn't do that. And then he's like 30 cents on the dollar bid for all of his friends that were like fucking trying to flash all their gains.
There's
you're buying your buddy's Lambo or McLaren or whatever.
And look, I'm a car guy. There's nothing in the world that I would like more, than to have a Lamborghini or something like that one day. But, there's a point of wealth, in my opinion, at which a Lamborghini makes sense. Maybe that's you have a $30-40 million net worth, and buying a Lamborghini to you is like buying a Honda Civic for somebody else. But just because you have $2-3 million, if you buy a Lamborghini, you're a fool. There's no justification for that. You don't have the level of wealth to support that. I think I saw someone say one time, if you can't afford to buy 10 of them, you actually can't afford to buy it.
That's pretty smart.
Just something to keep.
I like that.
Well, dude, what about? You get like 15%, 10% funding rate on a Lambo, and you're paying like 250% annualized on a perp. Like, sounds like a dude.
No, I've never been one. I wear sweatpants, man. Like I've never been one to go like shopping, go super flashy. And at this point, I'm actually long term. I'm looking to stash some nice yield stuff. Right. I don't know about this idea. People are like, oh, if I had 7K, I could, or 7 million, I could retire. I think you might if you just spend frugally and you budget that, but then you're just losing. You're going down every year.
You need 10 after tax.
And I think if you can get a yield though, if you can find, this is why I'm so excited about DeFi is the usage, because right now it's, this year it's been rug, like last year is a lot of rugs, a lot of bullshit, a lot of hacks, a lot of flash loans. But some point there's going to be these fairly stable protocols where you can grab 3, 7, 10 kind of percent APYs on stables, on USD, whatever. It's going to change the game. And so if you can find a number that you can sit comfortably with as like a passive income each year, you just have to create the goal to be that underlying amount. Is it 3 million is going to net you whatever 100K a year? Live off that. Like that's sort of my plan.
It's going to happen. There's no like where you show me anywhere in this world where you can find yield, and so much of like QE, like what it's really done at the base layer of just the financial world globally is like it's put pensions who rely on cash flows like so fucking upside down. It's put retirement plans of private companies like way the fuck upside down. It's put governments upside down. Like no yield is insane. The world has like lived off of yield, like let alone like speculative alpha or gains from like from stocks, things like that, and just like natural growth. But man, like when you get into retirement, people are all they're looking for is that yield. So like this is really the only place on earth that you can find it legally.
It's the best onboarding mechanism
ever. To me, it's like this is the key to mass adoption.
I'm curious how long these yields last. Like how sustainable are these yields? I would imagine we're not going to be seeing 20-30% yield on stable coins during.
Absolutely not.
But
8%, 7%.
Can you see
it's huge.
5 to 7% during a bear market? And if so, that's one of the things that is additive to the argument that DeFi is here to stay. That DeFi will continue to exist, and I mean,
it is.
If there's 7 to 8% yields in a bear market, and you can do that reliably, you can do that from a point of relative safety. If we get better insurance on these smart contracts, if we get better security practices. Get more battle tested contracts out there as we learn more about this and we continue to pay the cost of learning these lessons. I think that there's going to be people for the first time ever interested in keeping money around during the bear market, which is something that we've never seen before. During previous bear markets, all of the liquidity has totally dried up everybody sells, the LPs pull out. I mean, everybody's just kind of getting out of Dodge. But, what happens when the vast majority of that liquidity, or even just a significant portion of that liquidity in the lending markets, in the liquidity markets, stays around? Does that lend itself to a future to where DeFi doesn't necessarily have this giant bubble and then pop? Which I definitely think we're going to enter a major DeFi bubble. I think that this shit is going to run way beyond anybody's expectations. I mean, imagine seeing something like Uni. We're seeing Coinbase, at a $100 billion valuation, and Uni's at an $8 billion valuation. Imagine seeing something like Uni at a $100 billion valuation. That's a fucking bubble. Like that is absolute insanity. There's no justification. Is
it? No, but it's even a bubble though. It depends on obviously the
relativity, right?
Yeah, I mean, if Coinbase is trading 100, 200 billion, they're doing a certain amount of volume. Shareholders are entitled to a certain amount of the cash flow. If Uni's doing those numbers and shareholders are actually, then it's not a bubble yet. That bubble to me is when Coinbase is trading 200 billion, Uni's trading 600 billion. Then it's like
that could be. I can't even imagine that. I don't think I've got enough coom for that situation.
I could see Serum doing it.
Yeah,
over Uni, to be honest.
100%. There's a lot of these DeFi protocols that stand to make gains on these traditional CEXs.
Yeah, we got away from the yield stuff, but I wanted to talk a little bit about these Aave yields because you can see them fluctuate. And I think you guys are right. Like borrow lending yields will get smashed down in a bear market because it'll be like, show me the safe yield. Let me get my stables. I'm just going to smash this down. And during the strong bull over the last month, I saw this USDC yield up around 30% because nobody wanted it, right? So they have to incentivize the lenders because at that point, why are you sitting here? You should be over there mooning in, aping into something. And as we get into this little bit of uncertainty, it's kind of flowing back down to 8%. It seems average around 11. So those will get smashed down. But here's an interesting thought, guys, because ETH2 is going to be proof of stake. Infinite inflation, rewarding stakers. There's a yield there, and that's not going to go away. It's not going to get smashed down. Yes, more validators, it may fluctuate. Tezos, Algo, there's a ton of big POS chains going live. Arguably, sort of the next iteration of consensus is going to really pivot from proof of work was the OG into proof of stake. There's a lot of yields there that are going to be actually much more stable. And I'm really excited about sort of the next layer of DeFi that can maybe harness those. I mean, we're still so dial up right now.
Well, I feel like the next layer of DeFi, because we've already had this kind of a level 1 season, people made the Sam Dimick memes, all the Sam coins pumped like crazy. And then we had all of this shit going absolutely ape on Binance Smart Chain. And it was really just a matter of, I think Binance Smart Chain just kind of proved that there is a demand from apes to have somewhere to trade, to do DeFi, to lend, anything DeFi related that's reasonable, that's economical, that's fast. And in the near term, a lot of people have been saying that March is the month of the level 2 for Ethereum. Now, people get confused about level 2s, and they'll call things like StakeNet a level 2 or Matic a level 2. And, I do think that StakeNet and Matic are fantastic projects from a scalability perspective. But these are side chains. Level 2s like Arbitrum and Optimism actually directly scale the Ethereum level 1. And what they're actually doing here is they're taking these expensive smart contract calculations, these calculations that are eating up all of the gas limit and these Ethereum blocks, and they're actually moving those calculations off chain. They're doing all the calculations, and then they're moving that back on chain. So they can actually do these calculations off chain for, pennies on the dollar relative to what we're seeing on Ethereum right now. So we're looking at an immediate term scaling solution for Ethereum that's going to have an extreme impact on Ethereum as a whole. And I think Ethereum DeFi will have a nice window to flourish, where people aren't, of course, going to get Solana level transactional speed. They're not going to get, fucking $1 transactions like you would on Binance Smart Chain, but we're actually coming into a period of time where we might see Ethereum DeFi become something that's affordable. Imagine paying $5 or
Yeah.
$10 for gas. Would you do that, especially after you're used to paying $100 in gas? Fuck yeah. I'd do that. That's awesome.
It's funny how it's also relative. Like last summer, it was $2. Then there's a crazy day. It was like, oh, $20.
Yeah,
and today, how excited I was when I noticed it was like $24. I was like, oh, discount day at the ETH shop. What's that project you were just talking about, that L2?
Well, we've got Optimism, which is probably the more well-known level 2. And I actually retweeted this. I can't remember his name, but this dude did a fantastic thread on describing actual real L2, like Optimism or Arbitrum, versus sidechains for Ethereum, like StakeNet or Matic, and kind of described the benefits of real, level 2. You still have settlement on level 1, so something like Optimism or Arbitrum, still carries the security of the Ethereum level 1, which is a huge upside to something like Matic or StakeNet, to where you're actually having to rely on, their own consensus for security. But I mean, these things are coming in March, and it really, it's something that if the major protocols, buy into it, and they are, Synthetics, Uniswap, which is, the biggest gas hog on the Ethereum network, is subscribing to this. If we can just get a couple of major players to say, all right, I'm moving to level 2, that in itself will scale Ethereum enough in the near term to where the other things that haven't entirely moved to level 2 yet can actually exist and prosper. So it's a really interesting time that that we're coming upon. Of course we have other scaling solutions like Keeper DAO, that aim to solve a lot of these gas wars. People don't understand it, but Ethereum in itself right now is actually pretty scalable. What's actually ruining the party for everybody is that with the Ethereum network, there's a gas limit for a block, relative, or instead of having a block size. So what actually is happening here, because we have 5 different AMM protocols, we have different lending protocols. There's all of this minor extractable value that occurs as a byproduct of all of the arbitrage opportunities and inefficiencies that are created by the Ethereum block time, and then having all of these different markets spread out everywhere. So what happens is, hey, there's an opportunity for a $1,000 ARB over here, and somebody tries to capture that ARB. Well, that intention goes to the mempool, and there's other advanced actors that are watching the mempool that say, boom, hey, here's an opportunity for $1,000 in profit. This dude has bid $100 in gas to be, have his transaction ordered so that he's the guy that gets it. I'm going to bid 150. And then you got another guy that comes in, I'm going to bid 300. And then you got another guy that comes in, well, I'm going to bid fucking $950. So all of a sudden, you have people bidding, and sometimes even these people lose money, but you have people bidding outrageous amounts of gas to actually capture, the $50, $100 left of profit, when everybody else says, all right, fuck this, I'm out, I'm done bidding. And what that actually does is it fills up the gas limits on these Ethereum blocks, and it makes it extremely expensive for the average Ethereum user to transact. So when we do move all of these computations, off chain, and people will still be having these gas wars over arbitrage opportunities. But the arbitrage opportunities are actually going to become more present. They're going to become more plentiful because more trading is going to be possible. Trading is going to be cheaper, and it's going to be cheaper to capture these ARBs. And that really should help to alleviate some of the congestion on the Ethereum network, some of these gas war problems and stuff like that. People think that it's either Ethereum or Solana, or Ethereum or Binance Smart Chain. What many people don't realize is that where we're headed with this DeFi future, liquidity itself is going to be cross-chain. In the future, when you go to an aggregator like 1inch or Matcha, that aggregator may actually tap into liquidity on Solana, on Ethereum, and on Binance Smart Chain, and on Polkadot simultaneously. So it's not like, oh, Ethereum sucks, so Solana's the best. It's that, Ethereum needs to scale because Ethereum is where the customers are. Ethereum is where the liquidity is. And if Ethereum scales and we can further, get more progress on Ethereum, that only contributes to the successes of these other solutions that are just doing things that Ethereum can't even do. Solana or Ethereum can't handle high frequency trading. It's not built for that. It doesn't have the throughput. So what Ethereum can do is offer liquidity and bridge that liquidity to Solana so that the people that want to take advantage of high frequency trading, cheap fees, and super fast transactions, can actually get over there. So, I mean, it's just from a scalability standpoint, and when we look at the fundamentals, the narrative that will actually drive this next, mega leg of alt season, we've already seen this concept proven on primarily Binance Smart Chain. And everything went fucking nuts on Binance Smart Chain. It went crazy. And the last time I checked, everything still looks pretty good. But that only, that's just proof in the pudding. That goes to show that if Ethereum were able to have some kind of scalability, with the amount of users that Ethereum has, with the infrastructure Ethereum's built out, altcoins could go absolutely fucking ape shit. And that could actually be sustained for months on end. What's the end of what's the local top of every DeFi move? It's when gas is fucking 600 GUI, right? And nobody can afford to play the game anymore. When that top scenario is actually removed from the equation and gas stays reasonable, the top isn't going to be holy fuck, nobody can play the game anymore. The top is going to be holy fuck, this shit has bubbled really hard and it's time to dump.
Should we talk about Sir Charles Hoskinson and his claim that network effects on Ethereum are not meaningful?
And he's bullshit.
I mean, because we're talking about, you just said about an altcoin pump, seeing shit pump. Are we turning into like network centric pumps where, okay, it's time for the ETH specific applications and L2s to pump? Because those have been under pressure since this whole gas issue, this cost issue has been around and it's real. So like those have kind of been really.
I think the answer to that question, Rob, is 100% yes. And we're going to see pumps occur on. It's going to be Binance Smart Chain season again at some point, and then it's going to be Solana season again at some point. And that's just because we don't have this unification of liquidity yet across all of these chains. So to actually see a season on Solana, on Binance Smart Chain, on wherever else you're looking at, you have to have kind of a rotation of capital over to that platform. And until we get to the point where, and this is the DeFi future that a lot of people are working really hard on, to where, liquidity is efficiently bridged cross chain, I think that'll continue to be the case.
So look at synthetics, look at Aave, look at these coins that really led the beginning, like complete parabolic moves at the beginning of this cycle, and how they've really stalled and they've gotten sell pressure. Wouldn't it make sense for pretty much any of those and all of those to write to Solana to make this interoperability like a reality sooner than later?
I think that's actually in a lot of people's roadmaps, is they're working, whether it be with Solana or somewhere else, we're seeing this interoperability narrative. I think there's some kind of proposal to bring sushi to Solana in some capacity. So, in terms of long-term growth, I think those are fantastic objectives. And I think that the people that don't pursue those objectives are going to be left behind. I don't think that things like that are going to have as much of a near to medium term impact. I think that the near to medium term low hanging fruit is definitely pursuing scalability solutions, making it so that people can actually use synthetics. I don't know if you guys have ever used synthetics, but it's fucking terrible. It's so expensive. And the thing with synthetics is, it enables pretty much infinite liquidity, on whatever you want to participate in, whatever you want to get in. But at the same time, I distinctly recall buying some synthetic Bitcoin on synthetics or converting, I think it was synthetic YFI to synthetic USD. And that act alone cost me 0.2 Ethereum in gas, which is just, why? Like that's insanity. And, the reality is that you've got all of these gas wars and you've got these people fighting over arbitrage and driving up the cost of gas, but also you've got now what are really, really complex smart contracts deployed on the Ethereum mainnet. And these cost a lot of money, to execute. They cost a lot of money to take care of the functions. So if we can actually take that execution off chain, with optimism, which is what, Uniswap v3 and synthetics are using, we actually come into a situation where I think a normal Uniswap trade that you would go in and you're not going to have to bridge your liquidity over somewhere like you would with Matic or StakeNet or whatever. But I could just come in and trade on Uniswap, and it would cost, maybe 1% of what it does right now. And that's a huge advancement.
It makes it doable. Right now, I refuse to trade on that shit right this second, unless like I've got a big bag and that's the only place to trade.
You can't trade on Uniswap. You can invest. You can come in. You
have to. It's the only way to overcome
one time,
the cost.
I'm going to eat the gas.
100%.
Yeah, I'm going to eat the gas. I'm not going to be selling this for 3 or 4 months, and I'll eat the gas then in 3 or 4 months. You can't be a trader on Uniswap. There's no fucking way.
No. That to me is where like Solana really takes control. There is the fact that you need speed, like to have really good liquidity and tight pricing to get like a true fair value of a market and really good price discovery. It doesn't come from like wide markets paying the bid-ask spread. It comes from like market makers who want to provide lots of liquidity. They need that speed there in order to and the processing power in order to protect themselves. It's not so much like they're not there to like game you and fuck you over. They're there to provide liquidity, and like it's how many hands they can get dealt, and you need that, and it's something Solana provides, and and I think between that and like just the pure fact that like you're looking at 50,000 transactions per second right now, which is like way more than most people need. Like it's silly what this thing could do. So.
Yeah, I've been really impressed with it since I moved over a couple weeks ago, trying it out. And shout out to Rob, because you gave me this idea with the idea of using perps to hedge a spot position and basically capture what's in between. And I don't know why it's not showing up right now, but the Ray staking APY that just went live yesterday or the day before, whatever, it was at 227 last night. I can't say why it's not populating right now, but I'm imagining it's still over 200. So now you can stake your Ray straight up, one asset, put it in. It's no lock. You just pull it out whenever you want. It's 200%. And then I thought about that, and I was like, man, if I pull from my farm, which was nice because of the IL, it slides between USD, so my price protection is there. I wasn't too worried about, what if Ray, comes out, it's pretty high inflation on these farms and stuff. What if it comes out and dumps? Well, I don't care because I'm in the farm. But then I thought, well, I want to stake it. And then I thought, what would Rob do? And then I looked over here on Solana or on FTX, and there's a perp. I said, you know what Rob would do? He would ape into a fat bag of Ray. He would stake it at 200%, and then he would short the perp 1x and just be sitting net neutral while he's collecting 225% on his USD, basically. And that's what I'm doing right now. So thank you, Rob.
You can't complain about that. 200%.
No,
You got to be in Canada.
That's the problem for a lot of you guys is this is a non-US thing. But I went through that yesterday. I said, and then I looked, I was like, well, unless the funding is like super negative and you're just paying this fee, but it's actually positive. So you're getting paid on funding to short it, to hedge it, while you're getting 220% on the other side. And then you got to ask yourself, which is always what I ask myself when I get a nice APY. I'm like, what's my risk of rug? If I put in a sizable chunk of this, what's the risk? It's always a total risk, right? It's like, well, it's fine unless the entire thing fucking collapses. But with Ray, Solana, FTX, Sam, I feel pretty safe. I feel like that's almost out of the equation. You can't guarantee anything because I'm not a fucking tech guy, but call me crazy. I think there's a no rug risk here.
Well, what you're playing there, theoretically, in an efficient market, you're getting that APY on farming Ray. Theoretically, the funding rate on FTX should be negative to where you have to pay to be short the perp. I mean, that's what you would think, but there's edge in crypto. Part of it is that US people cannot participate. This is part of the edge. If you can get positive funding and you can put this position on this structure, you're fucking winning. That is a great trade. Now, you have to assume that funding would theoretically be negative most of the time, or you'd have to pay to have this short on to protect your farming. But if it's not, bless your heart, like fucking get in there heavy, because that.
Yeah, I mean, here's a live look at their funding. I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh well, I'm probably gonna have to eat some funding. It's positive. So that speaks to me. I'm like, well, it should be negative. It's not. Is there just some bit I'm missing here where this thing's going to be $20 in a month and my hedge is like, maybe don't bother yet? Or I don't know.
That's why the risk-free rate in crypto is very high. I mean, it's just overlooked. This should be, this is a position you should have on in size and
maximum. Yeah, I mean, because that's the thing, right? If you got $10 million sitting around, you spot something like this, you're like, fuck it, smash the bid. It's 200%, and until somebody closes that loop, you're swimming in it. And the chart looks okay. Again, based on inflation, farming rewards, staking rewards, I would see this thing sliding down for a little bit. I don't know how low. It's hard to value, but I'm bullish on Ray. I've got a bag, short perps, but farming. Like it's been a lot of fun, and it's paying off.
Let's think about it. Even taking another step. If you're getting 200% APY to farm, you can actually take a net short position in the perp where you're short more perps than you even own
against what you're earning.
That's how.
So like factoring in that APY as well.
Yeah. What's your effective position?
Yeah.
And then take your effective position, which is synthetic, and then trade against that net synthetic position.
So we're gonna have to meet in a lab after this.
Mega Chicago drop fucking alpha on this live stream.
We're gonna have to step into the lab.
That stuff outside of like within 1 square mile of the Chicago Board of Trade. So that's pretty powerful.
I just did that cross-eyed thing that I do every time I talk to Rob, and he tells me something that's well beyond my pay grade. So we're gonna have to step in the lab tomorrow morning, Rob. You're gonna explain that to me, and if I can eke out some meaning, I'll bring it on live stream on Friday, guys.
Let's do it.
Because that sounds good. Another one, this is actually Gunny's favorite chart pattern. It's where you get that, and you help me spot this and actually stop doing what I do, which is just, if I'm not in a pre-sale or something, I'm like, ooh, it's launching, fuck it, it's low, I'll just buy it. But you're always like, nah, man, wait for that first wave of hype to wear off. Let it settle into some dirty consolidation. So this is Everest ID. And they're doing some pretty big things in the sort of ID, digital identification stuff. FTX integrated, partnered. I don't know about integrated, but partnered. They announced that on Twitter recently. So that's what put it on my map first. I said, okay, Samcoin, let's talk. And then I looked into it a bit. They just got a license from Malta. I couldn't tell you the name of it offhand, but it's basically the same one that Crypto.com has. Apparently the only other crypto project that has it. It's some kind of license, like money transmission license, extremely hard to get. There's only 8 or so that have been given out. So they have that. And so then I just think to myself, okay, so they're the real deal, probably not going away. 15-cent ICO or IDO on Kyber last month. Came out really nice, paid those guys well, 2x out of the gates, 3x over time, and up to $1.25. And it's just kind of bled out now, and it's just settled. And it actually reminds me, while we're chatting here, Messi, reminds me of Rook. After you first told me about Rook, and I went and looked at it.
It does look very similar, where we see this initial run, and then you have this kind of long period of consolidation. I think, and this might be a Brian Beamish term, but correct me if I'm wrong, pounding the table.
Yeah, that's a term. He likes that one, yeah.
It does kind of look like it's pounding the table there. And, if you look at this, what you're seeing is this longer horizontal period of accumulation. And every time, it goes down, it's just bought the fuck up. It's just getting accumulated.
Pounding the table means that Brian Beamish is pounding the table saying, like, you got to buy a fucking Rook.
Yeah. Well, and so this is Rook. When you told me about it was through here, we first started talking about it. I was like, oh, sounds dope. I think you actually told me about it here at like $36. I was like, sweet. I traded it through this. Didn't know what it was, so I had to sell, take some profit. And then down through this, I tweeted out finally after somebody mentioned on stream, I was like, I think I'm finally ready to buy Rook. And it was just sitting in the zone. And then you see these buy bars coming in, these nice big buy volume. That's your clue that this range is accumulation or, always probability. So very high probability. So you take this chart and it's starting to look eerily similar, the ID chart that I've been watching. I have been accumulating, I featured it in the newsletter this morning because I just, I want to share ideas. Like it's so easy to talk about a coin after it's gone 10x, your dopamine's pumping. And I always get shilled on shit and everyone's like, oh, it's so dope. And then I go look at the chart and it's just like up 7x. I'm like, well, thanks, man, but I'm not buying your highs. But this one just looks primed. And so I'm waiting for these accumulation lows. And this could be a week, could be 2 weeks. But if it's going to be that easy, like, is it that easy? I mean, is it just a matter of waiting now? I don't know. I feel like it is.
Think about how many people changed their lives off of listening to Messiah and buying Rook. Like, that's pretty amazing. It was such a good call.
It's not done yet.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we'll see. Fingers crossed. I did just because I played the swings a bit as well, and I offloaded I think about 40% of my Rook position at around 700, and I came back in with a vengeance in the upper 300s, and I bought the entirety of my Rook position back. I'm really just trying to refocus my portfolio on what I have very strong convictions on. On liquidity as well. I don't know if you guys have been watching Rook, but Rook now has $45 million of on-chain liquidity. So it's just a whale's playground, and you've got guys that can come in and purchase 7 figures of this coin now for extremely low slippage, and they can exit 7 figures of this coin with extremely low slippage as well. Which is very bullish for the upside here, because now you've got a situation where even the largest Rook whales out there, if they dumped, it would just be a blip on the chart. They wouldn't create this, incredibly scary, like horrific candle. So yeah, I'm going to be really interested to see where Rook goes. I concentrated into Rook. I concentrated some into Bancor. Rook being I'd argue the leader in MEV extraction. There's other projects that are attempting to mirror it and do the same thing. But if you're in things that have a unique value proposition, that are sufficiently liquid, have the right people in them, I think over the next 3-4 months, it's just going to kind of be easy mode.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I was just drawing up a Rook chart while you're talking. It's just climbed back into the pump chaser zone, kind of lost it. It was more of a 618 tag down here. And if you zoom out and you say, okay, this is, nice big leg one, we're going to consolidate here. If it continues, if it catches a next move up and there's some nice volume coming in right now, the volume's declining, which is good for this pullback, then, we're looking at 1380 for a basic fib extension. Next Chaos PRZ, the first Chaos PRZ smacked to, within like $25. Not too bad. It got front run. If it resolves that level, then stands to reason that we're headed to Chaos PRZ number 2, which is like 1600. So I like it. I did trade it with you. I sold some around 6s. I'm looking at it today after we spoke. I was like, fuck, I should buy some back, but I don't have any right now.
It looks good.
Chart looks
really,
great.
I'm looking levels wise. I'm looking at around 540. From a US dollar perspective, we're definitely going to have to take that level down. So there's definitely one of the shitty things about whenever something does pull back 50-60% is now you do have this cluster of resistances ahead, and there is a battle to fight. It's not like, hey, we're in price discovery anymore and we're just grinding up and there's no logical place for anybody to sell. Like, now there's logical places where traders can come in and they can say, hey, I'm expecting resistance here. I think I'm going to sell. I'm going to try to play the move. It does complicate things.
The one thing you do have now is a robust community who bought at $700.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. You can always count on the community to
CXRP.
To push things forward.
There is no more motivated community than the one that is underwater.
Oh my God.
I've been there, man. I've been there.
Can we take a look at Alpha? Because I know before the show started, I don't own any Alpha, but I know a lot of people in the know have been stacking Alpha here. And I think that Bitcoin chart looks really fucking good. Really, really fucking good.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this is Alpha. And Gunny told me about this earlier today. He said, just so you know, I've been buying some Alpha. And I said, okay, stop everything. Going to go check the chart. And always pleasant to see when it's actually in a buy zone, or at least just broke out. And so I actually like that better because it looks like this consolidation is coming to a close. And here's the sick thing about this. I'll buy on these breakouts in this kind of market state because I often get left behind trying to do what I typically would do. But look at this. I would not be shocked if we can get fills here sometime in the near future, where you get that confirmed bullish market structure, but then you still get the shakeout the reload zone, the retest. We may not be in that market state anymore, but at the start of the year, this worked like a charm for things like Atom, Ren. Wait for the breakout.
I was just about to say,
after.
that
Don't
looks
change your mind just 'cause it
really,
dipped one
really
more time.
similar to Ren BTC at one point.
Well, you guys clearly don't follow. Excuse me. You don't follow me on Twitter, because the other day I tweeted, I got an Ether scan alert that one of my best signals, they were accumulating alpha in size, and that was lower.
Oh, okay.
The Ether
Good company then. Yeah, I feel pretty good about.
Finding wallets that are
I feel good about.
Yeah, messy.
It was Gunny's wallet?
No, it was not Gunny's wallet. It was a different wallet that has been. They've been ahead of the game, and I can't tell you how much money I've made off Etherscan alerts. And it's similar, Daniel. You posted a bunch of shit the other day about big wallets accumulating stuff, and if you know the wallets and the entities who are in the market, the blockchain is there for you to go see what are the transactions that are taking place. It shows you.
Oh, 100%. Some of these big VC firms, like, they're not going to broadcast their moves on Twitter and stuff like that, but if you use the blockchain analytics to your advantage, I was very comfortable adding to my Bancor position at $5, even though it was already up a lot, because I saw, one of the biggest names in DeFi, Defiance Capital, on chain, just absolutely inhaling anything they could get their hands on at $5, and they're buying way more size than I was. So I was like, wow, if these guys have the kind of conviction to enter at this level, then that only adds to my own conviction that, hey, I can add here. This is definitely value. So just something to think about. And I think Alpha is one of these coins as well that, there's a lot of big VC money that's really interested in it. And, they may not be so public about that interest, but when you actually go look at who those top holders are and, who has these coins and where they're coming from, it definitely tells a story.
You can't do that stuff in the traditional markets, right? You have to wait for the 13F. You have to wait for the filings. Here, if you're looking at the blockchain, you're looking at it, you can see when people are accumulating it. The tools are there for you, and there's so much alpha in it because there's just not enough people looking at it. So I'd pay
$100 to get Gunny's address. Go on Etherscan. For anyone who's watching, if you didn't know this, you can actually sign in on Etherscan, make an account, and label wallets. And have basically built. Yeah, no, check it out. Very cool tool. I was surprised actually how many guys I work with that don't know this, but you can go on Etherscan, make an account, and then it'll actually send you can get email updates anytime there's something moved out of your wallet, although it's probably too late by that point. But you can set a lot of things. And so I've been indexing slowly. Anytime I spot a wallet and I think I know who it is, or I think I know what it is, you can just start to label them and then search them and watch them. And
that's super cool.
I'd love to get Gunny's address in there. Gunny, I'll pay $100.
Portfolio trackers for most of my wallet watching. I'm a big Zerion fan. I'm a big Zapper fan. I find Zapper has more integrations, but I prefer the UX of Zerion to that of Zapper. But you can, if you find these guys that make moves, you can add them to wallet tracking applications as well. Portfolio trackers, and you can literally on Zerion, for example, I can go look at the history and I can see when somebody's buying something, when somebody's selling something. These same VCs that are buying, massive B&T bags, massive alpha bags, like, they're going to start taking profit at some point. Why wouldn't I want to be watching to see when they feel, like, hey, it's time to start offloading, like maybe I should start thinking about that too. It's impossible for them to do these things in a sneaky way. Now, one thing I have found that they'll do so that you can't see them dumping is they'll move the balance to a centralized exchange like Binance, like Huobi, like FTX. And then at that point, you just kind of have to think, well, why the fuck else would they, all of a sudden stop chasing yield and move all of this shit to a centralized exchange? Well, they're probably trying to sell without people making too much noise about it, because there's always that plausible deniability then of, we're just market making. or we're just doing this. But they're moving the fucking coins to exchange to dump. Like, let's be real. So it's
at the highs.
Yeah. I mean, watch and this isn't just the VCs about. Of course, there's famous wallets out there. This is also just the whales for whatever you're in. Keep an eye on what they're doing. When a lot of times, especially if the liquidity isn't that great, when the whales decide that hey, that I've had enough and it's time to get out, a lot of times that's the top.
Yeah, I love that about DEX tools, right? You can see a big sell come in. You can click here on this wallet, and then suddenly you can see, oh, they have a whole shitload left, and they've just started selling. That's a different signal.
The worst feeling, dude.
Oh, I know. I hate it. There's this one particular wallet I've labeled it. I'm like, it's this fucking guy, and he seems to get in every pre-sale. And then I'm like, oh, he's still got 2 million left, and he's selling $25,000 chunks. I'm like, well, give it 3 weeks, boys. Like, we're staying here for a while. But that guy's almost out of ID. I will point that out right now.
By the way, that's
good news.
The better signal, right? You let that guy take a break.
Yeah. Well, yeah, when they run out.
And if he's a pre-sale guy, it sounds like a lot of what he does is just tries to scalp the pre-sale, which does not sound like a good investor. But just monitoring when as he starts to get out, like that's kind of like trading. Like Rob, you remember, like you'd have like a broker that was in the pit, and like he'd just be selling all day. And they used to do this in stocks too. Like you'd see like there's somebody, like they call it the axe, like the guy that actually like had the biggest commercial paper to move during the trading day, and like you could trade and like they're hitting you all day, or you can like lift them and they'll just take anything you got, and then finally like there'll be like a cleanup order, and like you literally want to try to like buy your entire stack off that last order, because once that order is gone, like that market's fucking getting sent. And like it's probably the same type of thing that you're watching here, and like you find a way to watch that guy like in near real time. I think you can pick up a ton of alpha.
Right. When does the sell off stop?
Yeah, I mean, fuck, the market's going sideways while this guy is just selling his ass off.
Yeah.
So in the absence of those sells, what do you think happens?
Yeah.
And those types of guys, right? So you can watch the Kyber contracts. Anyways, it's that kind of analysis now that's totally new. You don't have to look and say, is this distribution? Is this accumulation? I mean, you can just click on your favorite coin, click on the coin itself on Etherscan, and it'll suddenly, well, I don't have it right here, but it'll suddenly show you all the transactions for your coin. You can even look at the holders, obviously. You can see the top 5 wallets, make sure they're not selling, stuff like that. So somebody asked a good question here in the chat.
Oh, yeah.
Cupra. Now, we were talking about alpha, a bit of a tease. If we don't kind of finish off with some ideas about levels, he says, is alpha a good entry right now? And, of course, there's no financial advice here. I wouldn't say take everything we talk about and just do it. But let me tell you something about the entry here on alpha. First of all, high time frame, generally speaking, this is an area I love. But if you want to be a rock star, wait for these kinds of breakout confirmations like we just got. And, you can get left behind doing this. I like to move in partials just to make sure that, I don't get left behind, but I also can get my best entry. But, look what happened here on Ren. So this is where I'm going to draw the comparison to. And this happens all the time. It's not just Ren, but I've got it here. We covered this on our Twitter at Real Hero Labs. And, when we break out of this finally, right, 4 taps, we break out. It's like, yeah, is this a good entry? Because that's exactly what Alpha did today. Or are we now hunting some of these RLZs, some of these pump chaser zones?
Remember last summer?
And Ren, yeah. Like, I mean, this was the fill.
We were stacked in
this was the God tier fill.
I mean, Ren has been an absolute monster. The ultimate irony with my Ren position was that, of course, I traded out of that Ren position and compounded and did all of these things. And, because of that, I have, the short-term tax consequences as well, that comes with those kind of activities. But if I had just held my initial Ren position from the bottom to the high, not only would I have long-term capital gains on that, the high in my portfolio would have been, more than anything I could have done on my own. So it's funny how you end up shooting yourself in the foot sometimes by, rotating, by doing things like that. Because, after I sold my Ren, I had a lot of wins, but, I got rugged. I bought things that went down, that I had to take losses on, whereas sometimes just the straight up buy and hold will, especially in something with really solid fundamentals, will just always outperform anything else you can do.
Yeah, and I'm feeling naked without my Ren right now. But where is it sitting? Anyone who can read this chart can see it is sitting in the pump chaser zone after that really nice breakout. So go figure, it's just consolidating here. I would like to get some back. I traded it pretty aggressively through this, and I am empty on Ren, but that's one that, along with Alpha, I'm watching this month. I mean,
What do you think?
Yeah, if this, like, look, Bitcoin could consolidate here for a while. And when it does, it's consolidation, which means every dump is going to be volatile. Every little rally is going to be quite volatile because nobody knows what the fuck's going on. So it's jockey, back in, back out. And that is going to have some ripples in the altcoin market. So I'm not too sure. Like, I picked up some alpha today just around here. But I'm looking for these dips, man. If there's one more little move on Bitcoin, whatever, this thing could really fill up nice on a dip through this. Sorry, what did you ask there, Messi? A second ago?
I was saying, based on that Ren chart,
about where do you see?
There's a meme on Twitter now. The old meme used to be Ren to $1. We tackled the first meme. That was kind of inevitable. The new meme is Ren to 10. So is there anything? And the most, we're trying to harvest some hopium here. That's what the people want. Let's give people this edge case, of where Ren could be going. Probably not, but maybe, because in crypto, you just never fucking know. If you told me, when I had Ren 2 years ago that Ren was going to go to fucking almost $2, I would have been like, holy shit, are you sure about that? Like, that's a little outrageous, but.
Okay, Moon Boy. Yeah, you don't take it seriously.
Let's get some fucking Moon Boy targets.
Well, yeah, but I mean, that's it, right? When people used to tell me that about these tokens, I'd be like, okay, Moon Boy, whatever you say. And then, but then it happens and you're like, holy shit. Let's see. Chaos PRZ is pointing up to 219 next based on this consolidation. That seems like a reasonable target if we continue here. Again, we're in a pump chaser zone, sharp sell-off at that high, so I would expect a little consolidation. But let's see, Chaos PRZ 2 is up to 80, 87, like $4. And
Wow.
if you want to draw, just say this gets its own, like, let's go super ham. So the low that we just made to the recent high, if this turns into a consolidation range and we break from that, we're getting pretty spicy over here later in the year. I mean, this is kind of like if we're going to live in this 2017 fractal, then this is probably the kind of weird, crazy shit you're going to see this year. If, right?
And that, it looks like Ren to 10 is on the table if the market goes absolutely fucking bad shit here, and we do have this mega bubble.
What's the supply
of Ren? I think 1 billion Ren. And I think it's a fixed supply.
So 9 billion, like if the market's, if everything is elevated, that to me does not seem ridiculous for Ren.
Yeah, 9-10 billion. I don't think that sounds ridiculous at all. Especially if we're looking, and everywhere we see projects over $50 million cap. I mean, fuck, we're still looking at the top 10, and you've got other, you've got shit like ADA, which is like number 3 right now. I can't look at the top 10 right now. Seeing just the absence of super high quality DeFi and think that this sector doesn't have room for growth. And also, when we do grow, what's that going to look like? What kinds of things are going to make it into the top 10? There's always a couple of projects that sneak into the top 10 during these bull markets that nobody sees coming. Like, for example, Rayblox in 2017, they rebranded to Nano and fucking 100x. Like, I thought Rayblox was going to pump, but nobody in the right mind was looking at that shit saying this is about to 100x. And things will do that. I don't think that the conditions have changed, and human greed is still there. Like, there's still whales out there that are running these super pumps and exploiting people in that way. So, I don't think you can really write off those edge case like mega pumps yet. I haven't seen one. Maybe BAO. You guys remember BAO? BAO. It was.
Oh yeah.
It's kind of like
somebody mentioned
synthetics on sushi, or something like that. Synthetics and
BAO
sushi
token.
But I mean, BAO went absolutely fucking crazy. From the bottom. If you actually look at the percentage, it's
that Matic
Oh yeah, that was like 129,000%, 131.
That's insanity. And it was liquid too there. It wasn't like, this is some super liquid shitcoin doing this. It was super liquid.
Stratton Oakmont was pushing
Yeah.
it pretty hard, I heard.
I mean, must have. Yeah.
Woo did something like that this week. I mean, like, without the log chart, you can't even really see
That
it.
wick is just
But this
disgusting.
is actually one somebody brought up on stream. Yeah, somebody brought this up on stream, like back here. I guess it was like mid-January. So shout out to them. I actually went and picked some up. I flipped it pretty early, but I saved a moonbag. I don't know who you are, but you're on this stream. You're watching right now, and you brought up Woo, and then the thing went fucking 10,000% in 2 months or 1
Good
month.
Lord.
So
I
cool.
mean, they've got a really
Love it.
big community member there who aped in on that. Way.
Yeah, I bought $2 Woo. Good luck on that, man.
Can we?
Well, and it's kind of sick how hard it's holding up. I expected it to really wash out, but it's kind of like
It's showing
hanging
some
out.
strength here.
We'll see.
So,
Tell me, is there anything to capture from a situation where Solana network is trading at a $3 or $4 billion cap, and Cardano ADA is trading at a $40 or $45 billion cap? Is there any way to capture that, or is it a fool's errand to try to look at these token caps and make comps?
Fundamentally, yeah.
No, I think it's exactly what we do in the bull market. And that's why it was so dangerous, because in 2017, everyone was like, well, if ETH is here and this does that, then this should be that. But then ETH marked down and the entire market washed out because everything was pegging their value to like comparatives with ETH. But I think you're bang on. I mean, it's one of the best ways we have to. Yeah, how else do you apply value to this? You simply say somebody's paying $1.23 for this thing. They're valuing it at 40 billion. So surely project X, Y, and Z are each should be worth more. And that's how we peg it. It's how speculators speculate.
It's so funny.
I think things like Cardano,
so
pumping as hard as they did, that was an answer to the lack of scalability of Ethereum. So you had that narrative, which to be honest, I never saw that narrative presenting itself again, the Ethereum killer narrative. But here we are. I was very clearly wrong about that. You look at something like ADA, which has moved more than almost anything this year, and it seems to be holding up pretty well. At the same time, you start asking yourself, and you start looking at something like ADA, and you look at something with really no use case at all currently. I mean, of course, I think they've got some kind of supply chain tracking in a couple different places, but we don't have like a large amount of money being shoveled around on the ADA network, which you do have. I think 70% of the ADA is staking. So you've got a very strong community. You've got a large amount of that supply locked up. But at the end of the day, you've got to look at something like ADA, and every single time I've ever heard anything about ADA, it's always, oh yeah, it doesn't do anything, but you wait till this next big release on the roadmap, and
yeah, same.
Which is
crazy.
what?
Which is, this is Shelley, or this is that, or this is that, and now you've got Charles Hoskinson saying what network effects on, Ethereum. Well, bro, there's nobody, I don't know one person that uses ADA. ADA isn't used for anything. You've got newer chains like Solana that probably have over 10 times the users that ADA has. And Solana is still super early in its growth. The fact of the matter is that ADA literally doesn't fucking do anything. And it's sitting at a 40-something billion dollar.
What do they do? Like, what does the core dev team do all day?
Well, they're really big on research. ADA is published all, the Cardano IOH case. Yeah, they published all sorts of stuff, academic papers, and fleshed out all sorts of computer science research and stuff which is really good. They're researching some of the technologies that could
that's not worth $45 billion, but that's valuable.
But it's $45 billion for a platform that has no reason to transact with. That doesn't even have smart contracts. People have been talking about smart contracts on ADA now for years, and I've heard and I could have just heard wrong. I heard the next update we'll finally kind of realize that smart contract dream, but who knows? I feel like I've heard that 100 times now,
right.
And even then and we've seen this like on Binance Smart Chain. And Binance Smart Chain, just to be very clear on this, it was very, very easy for BSC to capitalize on some of the network effects from Ethereum, because basically all BSC is an Ethereum clone, where BNB is now the gas instead of Ethereum, and it's super fast. People use MetaMask on it. It was the same experience they had on Ethereum. There was no learning curve. There was no anything like that. And now let's say that, hey, Cardano, which theoretically, does have a more scalable, better platform than Ethereum. It's got its own programming language. I don't think it's Solidity. Has these smart contracts now, and you're telling me that network effects don't matter and that people are going to come over and fucking use that shit? I don't even know how to get ADA. Like, where do I even buy that shit? Like, it doesn't make sense. Like,
you flip it on a Binance.
If anything, if they do release smart contracts and stuff like this, it's going to take a while for those network effects to develop. It's going to take a while for the developer community to come over and start building on it. It's going to take a while for liquidity to be bridged over to Cardano and things like that. So there's just some things.
So here's the trade, because we know this about these markets. Speculation is always going to run higher than actual demand, right? It's going to drive further. So you get these like launch into mainnets, you get these huge pumps. Everyone's like, man, once this mainnet's live, the demand is going to be through the roof. But by the time it gets there, we've speculated the shit out of it. It's way too high. The actual demand doesn't feed the, beast. So you end up with sell the news. So as you were speaking, I was inking up the ADA ETH chart. Somebody said, hey, let's chart ADA versus Ethereum. It looks like it's come into some objectives. You say, maybe they've got smart tracks going live soon. And my first thought is like, damn, this could be the sickest sell the news trade. If this thing's going to pump to 40, 50, 60 billion, and then it's going to go live with minimal network, let's short it. And not to, this isn't like driving into the ground. I'm an aggressive hedge fund, but it's like, we're traders, man. And that, as you're talking, I'm like, shit, I got to pay attention to this, because this thing's pumping well beyond what anyone thinks it should. And there's a huge sell the news potential catalyst coming. When is that shit going live, Daniel?
I believe in a month or two. I'm not 100% sure on the timelines. I do think it's relatively near term. But I agree with you. I don't believe we are still in an era where something with zero dApps, something with zero users, something with really zero utility right now, of course that could change, deserves to be top 3 by market cap.
No, it was too far too fast. I'm really excited. John, write down on our list for today of shit to actually trade to look for ADA short, please.
The scariest thing about this, though, in looking at a pairs trade, right, is let's say you thought ADA was retarded rich at 25 billion or 20 billion cap, and you wanted to put on a pairs trade where you were short that against long Solana or long something else, and this thing then doubles in a couple weeks, and you just get fucking torched on that spread. The problem is these things can stretch and move to extremes like you wouldn't believe. So it gets difficult to like put your foot, draw a line in the sand and say, using your best RT voice, ADA at 40 billion, you're crazy. I'm going to sell the shit out of this thing. Like, how do you step in front of that? And then, because these markets, they overshoot. It's insane.
So look at the Nats. Maybe I need to start, I definitely want to trade this. It's one of these things that just stood in my head. I said, you're right. Every one of you guys is right. This thing is overvalued by every measure that I can think of. And if and when it goes live, if it rallies into that, it's going to be glorious. Look at this. I drew this up earlier while we were talking. If you just take this little consolidation and you kick out a chaos PRZ, you get level 1 here. Okay. But you get level 2 here, which happens to line up within half a cent of the larger, higher time frame chaos PRZ 1. So this is a level here. And how the hell do those two line up when they're so friggin', high leverage? Like the second you move it like a pip, it moves like a 10 cents. So that's something that's speaking to me right now. And if we, chill out here, maybe get a little exhaustion rally up, I've got to be ready, especially if that happens in and around something that's like an event. And God forbid, if we get up here in a couple months and then it's like 100 billion, oh man, I want to short it. Call me crazy.
Yep. You just got to have enough cap.
We'll come back. yeah, we'll track this one, guys, because this is a pretty nice macro looking trade. Anytime you get a trade that's driven by a narrative, it's just double fun. 2 weeks ago, Messi, you asked me at the end of the show, you said, what's our shill of the day? We are getting up there around the hour and a half mark. I'm comfy, guys. If you want to stick around, that's cool. But if we're getting near the end, you know, a couple weeks ago, you asked me, what's the shill of the day? My response was, I have a few, but we landed on Matic. I'm happy to say Matic's done really well. This was shill of the day down here at 220. It's just been on fire. And part of that was the Polygon pivot, the L2 ETH, you know, getting into that Polkadot Atom conversation. I think Alpha is a good for today. Some of you guys are looking at that. What is your shill of the day today, Messi?
I think my show of the day is still going to be Bancor. I know Defiance Capital, announced their public investment into the platform today. Wayne Garrian, who is a really good follow. If you guys don't follow him, you should. Put together a long thread on how Bancor could be, one of the AMM dark horses of 2021. And the things that they've done have created, a much, much superior AMM to what is available from Uniswap, from SushiSwap. They've actually managed to solve the main issue with being a liquidity provider, which is impermanent loss. They have the concept of co-investment, in which the protocol mints BNT to be the other side of your single-sided liquidity. And what that co-investment actually allows Bancor to do is, on all the volume that's routed through, their contracts, that co-investment is collecting fees from the trade. And they use these fees for being the other side of your liquidity to ensure you on your single side against impermanent loss, which is a really elegant solution. Now, they're also working with Arbitrum for their level 2 scalability solution. I've heard rumors of gas cost reductions of up to 99%. So that's just something as well, when you're looking at any kind of investment, do they have in the near term any kind of level 2 roadmap? I think the things that do have upcoming level 2 solutions are really going to run. But it's extremely liquid. The chart is extremely strong. It's got momentum. And people, I've seen in the chat, people keep saying, do hedge it, do hedge it. I actually talked about this on church 2 days ago. The Hedging chart was looking very weak compared to the other things that I was on. And I had to bail on Hedging. And I put my Hedging into more Bancor and more Rook, because Bancor and Rook had much more liquidity and were much stronger on the bounce, whereas Hedging was breaking down below the VWAP. These things were respecting the VWAP. These things were bouncing really hard. So I had to bail on that. And I'm really, really excited to see, just where this goes. One of the interesting things about Bancor is the price of the BNT token increases. The liquidity on the platform scales directly with the price of the Bancor token. So we're looking at, $1 billion worth of liquidity on Bancor right now. Well, at $15 Bancor, you'll be looking at upwards of $2 billion of liquidity on the platform, and so on. And Andrew Kang wrote a really interesting thread about Bancor being a liquidity black hole in the past. And it's because of the whole chicken and the egg, what comes first, the liquidity or the volume? And as we increase the liquidity on Bancor, more and more aggregators are going to begin to target Bancor and their routes, drive more volume to Bancor, which in turn makes Bancor a more attractive proposition for liquidity providers. These guys just want to chase fees, right? But then they can come over to Bancor. They can have that single-sided exposure. They can collect those fees. And as more liquidity comes in, we get more volume. It brings in more liquidity. I mean, it's just the perfect setup for growth. So I'm holding strong. I'm going to see what happens over the next couple of months. And when I'm looking at something like Bancor or Rook, I'm looking at things with, extreme levels of on-chain liquidity now. And those levels of on-chain liquidity give this the potential to run really hard, because whales can come in and they can play. whales can exit without totally destroying the market. If something has really strong bullish momentum, a whale selling out isn't going to kill that. And also the actual volatility of the assets itself, the volatility is muted. So, let's say Ethereum's having a really nasty day one day and, all the altcoins are dumping 10, 20%. If you're in something that's extremely fucking liquid, the likelihood that on an impulse on a fear day, you're also going to perform at negative 20%, I feel like is a lot less. So having that exposure to things that have a lot of strength, have a lot of liquidity, and that give me the ability to reduce the volatility of my portfolio, for me, that's the move moving forward for the next couple of months.
Boom. I don't have any BNT. I waited last week for a pullback. I haven't got it yet. I am missing the boat, but we're at this little resistance. There's my hopium for today. Can I get a bid filled? Do I need to ape in a small bag? We'll find out. But this target confluence up here around, I guess, 3,200 and 36,000 and 32,000 sats. That's my next guess. Key resistance, like this whole area looks ripe for a next move.
What's the percentage upside on Bitcoin?
For the Bitcoin pair to get to that target area, that's like a 1.5x, 150%. It's not bad.
That'd be a 2.5x, right?
Well, from this exact level to this area that I'm watching, we'd be in that 150 to 180% upside.
Yeah, 150% is, or 100% is a 2x, right?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
That's what I meant there. Yeah.
Yeah, my bad. I'm like, no, I didn't say 200%. That's a 3x. Welcome to math class, kids.
Would produce your Batman GIF.
I mean, that would definitely be coom worthy. We're looking at $6.60 right now. So, I mean, assuming that Bitcoin stays around where it is right now, we can go ahead and extrapolate that target to maybe around $15-16 as an appropriate near-term target for Bancor.
Crazy.
Love to see it.
Be a big move.
Wouldn't mind it. What do you got, Rob? What are you loading up on?
The $6 no on Link?
No, I've been loading up on, actually it's an old name that I think is not getting the love it should have. I think it's also kind of been under pressure in this whole Ethereum kind of supply period, but ZeroX. I think that the confluence with the Chinese New Year and the year of ZeroX, and just the fact that they just raised 15 million bucks, the fact that they actually are one of the most widely used protocols in DeFi. I think we're going to get an epic pump out of ZeroX. I don't know when, but that's something that I've been building a outsized bag in.
I agree with that. I think a mega pump on ZeroX is inevitable. I mean, if you look at just how long it's actually gone sideways, the amount of development progress they've been able to make, and you're right. I mean, it is literally one of the primary backbones of DeFi. Most people watching this have used the ZeroX protocol and have no idea that they've even used it. So I've actually read threads because from an external perspective, the actual revenue generated by ZeroX and the value accrual to the ZeroX token isn't so obvious, but I've actually read some threads recently, by guys a lot smarter than me, that are showing that ZeroX actually has fantastic value accrual to token, and that it's actually a really, really good investment too from a fundamental perspective.
I think it's gonna fucking pump like.
Damn it. I'm running out of money, man. You guys got me again because every time I hear you,
Bitcoin, holy shit!
I know, and every time I hear Rob talk like this, very few and far between, and he's like, "I'm loading up on this," and then he makes that face. And then you see the chart and it's like, look at these buys coming in, all zoom in, whatever, but zoom out. And this is all just this accumulation bottom. I'm going to have to get a bag of ZeroX.
Bitcoin, like, it just makes me so bullish, because when we are in a bubble environment, the whole point of alt season is that everything moons versus Bitcoin. That's what alt season is, and I'm looking at all these extremely bullish charts versus Bitcoin. People overcomplicate things. People try to make all of these narratives. At the end of the day, you have to just trade the chart that's in front of you. And if you didn't know that this was ZeroX versus Bitcoin, what if this was ZeroX versus US dollar? I mean, you'd be looking at that chart and saying, well, that looks pretty fucking bullish. It looks like it's about to spring to the upside. So don't try to, talk yourself out of these things by having these conspiracies of, if Bitcoin does this and then Ethereum does this, and, the only thing you can do is just trade what's in front of you.
The problem.
Yeah. And that's,
yeah.
Go ahead.
1 sec. My one question in my mind is, people who have been around for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years are used to looking at the BTC pairing, and that was the guiding compass. But part of me is like, okay, how relevant is the Bitcoin pairing now? Is it less relevant, which is going to actually affect the signals you can get from that chart? You look for when something's bullish against USDT and bullish against Bitcoin and bullish against ETH, and you're like, okay, get me the fuck in. I'm getting in big. But how much weight should we give to the Bitcoin pair when we're in a world where between Uniswap and futures that trade against USD, how does it matter? Are people using their Bitcoin to buy this shit anymore?
I think it definitely matters, because in 2017, there was alpha in looking at the US dollar chart, even though the US dollar in some sense wasn't the primary unit of liquidity on exchanges or elsewhere. People still looked at those US dollar charts, and those US dollar charts had significance. They were important. Sometimes it revealed levels that weren't there on the Bitcoin chart, et cetera, et cetera. So I think looking at the Bitcoin chart now, while it's not the primary unit of liquidity anymore, and certainly not the only chart you should consider, I do think that there's a lot of weight there. Bitcoin has performed extremely well over the last couple of months. And at some point, other things are going to outperform Bitcoin. So that's what we're going to be looking for here.
Yep. Yeah. As bullish as you could be on Bitcoin with all the institutional buy-in and this real pricing, this re-rating, this repricing of what it is, and now these institutional bids that are just there. You see the amount of Bitcoin that is leaving Coinbase, like legitimate people, institutions that are buying physical coins and taking it the fuck off the exchange, putting it in a cold storage, in the custody, like that's real. So you start to think, well, shit, if Bitcoin really marks up to 100 grand, like what is going to happen to these BTC pairings? Can there be enough excitement about the L2s and the apps and all these other tokens that they can keep up with Bitcoin? But to think about like what happened at the end of 2017 and 18, when not only did some of these alts keep up with Bitcoin, but the Bitcoin pair charts fucking exploded. That's when like 10x's, 50x's, 100x's like become a reality. And that gets just crazy. So
yeah, and I was just thinking that with regards to that ZeroX pair, or ZeroX, I suppose. Right?
Your
Canadian broadcast. You guys can say Zed. But if this goes parabolic, which from some views it is, and as Gunny likes to say, if you're feeling bearish, just flatten the chart because it still looks like it has a lot more upside. And it works, man. If you flatten this chart out, it's like, oh yeah, what's a little upside? But if you're like feeling the bear and you just have this vertical version, you're like, God, that looks heavy. But if this thing goes parabolic, even more so, and then you get over here to something like ZRX, and you start thinking about, okay, this move just up within, oh God, it's huge. What did I do? I must have had it on the daily. Just up within this range. Like even if it doesn't go to new all-time highs versus Bitcoin, but Bitcoin rallies and this thing marks up 400%, that's probably going to be like a 20.
Yeah, you could be looking at 20x on that for sure. Which it's hard to even think in those terms
versus USD.
It seems so like it seems so much larger than life. But you know,
You gotta like look. Yeah, it's like
mania, this is what happens.
pinch that chart down, man.
And to be clear, I'm saying these are what things could happen, right? These things could. I'm not at all saying like ZeroX will 40x, but these are the kinds of things that you gotta think about. I mean, this shit.
You can't say
What is
this is
ZeroX
not
at?
going to happen. How about that?
That's the best way to put it.
I got one
You
more
just can't say it won't happen.
I got one more little nugget of alpha here to look at. I don't want to give away too much edge, but I can't trade this shit anyways. I'm in the fucking US, so anyone outside can. But Avalanche, AVAX, right? This thing pumped like a fucking madman in January. So they've got the second distribution of coins. The second unlock is happening, I believe, March 8th at night or March 9th at 00 UTC. So just watch. There will most likely be some sort of selling because I think that private sale round was done at like 55 cents or something, and it's trading $28. But I think part of the reason it hasn't done much bouncing here is because of the March 8th, March 9th second distribution. So take a look. If you see at 00 UTC time, you see some dumping. The last time this happened in December, the shit made a V bottom, and there was some profits to be had by getting in there and getting a bag. So,
well, people have made the meme bullish unlocks, and if you think about it, it does kind of make sense. These guys, who's going to come in and pump their fucking shit if they don't have any coins to sell? If you got a VC that's heavy as fuck in something and it doesn't get his coins until next year, well, what incentive does he have in the near to medium term to do things to increase the value of that bag? If anything, he's going to want to prolong that cycle and stretch this out as long as he can, so that when he does unlock his coins, that's when the action will be happening.
Yep. This I can almost, it's not that you guarantee, but something's going to happen with this. Unlocks, these are fundamental events that cause market volatility. So get ready. Like I kind of, it hits the pump chaser zone. I kind of want to get into a bag, but knowing that this unlock is happening, you can get a little dump and then the spring. So it's something to definitely keep on your schedule. That's like 5 days away, 4 days away.
5 days. Okay. John, write that down. AVAX, because that's my favorite kind of trade, is when you're not chasing it, you're hearing about it, you're aping in. It's like, let me set some of those bids, knowing an event is coming. There, for anyone who hasn't done this before, I know a lot of people starting out trading, you just hear about something, you go market buy it. If you haven't set stink bids before, safest thing you can do with some asset you have sitting on exchange, you go, oh, I'm sitting in Bitcoin. Why not have, especially if you trade on Kraken, a dirty old stink bid sitting down there? Because if you have a big unlock coming and you think that's going to have a supply shock, maybe Bitcoin comes back down to the low 40s. This could be it. I mean, this is a sick throwback down here at 14. I don't know that we'd get that, but these things always surprise. But I really like even, 24, 21, 22. And when Rob speaks, I listen. So I'm going to be watching this one this weekend.
Dan,
all right. Well, great shill of the day. We got BNT, we got OX or ZRX, we got AVAX. What do you got, Dan? What are you loading up on, Gunny? Or do you want alpha today?
A lot of what you guys already talked about. But do I have any other?
What was that one that just popped into your head when you made that face and you're like, ah, fuck, I shouldn't talk about that? That's the one I want to know about.
I don't really have anything along those lines. I can't say it on this channel anyway. So no, I definitely have been pushing into Bancor for a while now, pushing into alpha. I'm starting to take a little bit of a different approach, like because I'm definitely holding things for longer term and kind of looking more cyclically at things. And one thing that's really kind of refined how I think about things is like, once it kind of has its Gartner cycle move, which is that, that first pump and then the retrace, which whether it's coming from unlock or whether it's coming, like however it's coming, it usually comes. And And historically, it's kind of like that 60 to 80% peak to valley. And so once you get it, and then you're in the cycle, and then you're starting to get the technicals, like you're starting to see the chart kind of do, put that bottom in. And a lot of the elements that Colin, that you've mentioned, like seeing the volume and the accumulation areas come in, then like I go and look at things like, is this team legit? How are they funded? What are they building? Like what is the world looking for right now? Like I don't chase like the quick, like it's more like kind of transcended how I've thought as a trader initially, and like which was like, get me in cheap, get me out quick. And now I'm starting to look at this because I feel like the tech is starting to catch up, and like even a lot of what we're building with Hxro and Hxro Network and stuff, and like really really kind of meditating on the fact that like I'm trying to think about how we build over the next number of years for something that becomes sustainable for the long term. And not thinking about like, oh, we're building an options protocol, everybody's building an options. Like I don't give a fuck what other people are building, to be honest. Like I care about what we're building and what we're solving and what we're building towards, and kind of like the scale at which, like, if in fact we do get a real transformation of kind of like of everything in the world in terms of like kind of moving to a very like network kind of populated ecosystem globally, that's what we're preparing and that's what we're building for. And so I'm starting to think about companies in the same, or projects that I'm looking to get behind in the same way. But that said, like it's still the trader in me, and still this concept of like I got to kind of see things get set up because I'm not on the inside there. I don't have any type of information that would give me some type of asymmetric advantage. So and I want to be smart with how I put my dollars to work. So what things can I control? I could talk to people that had gotten in early. I can try to get an idea of what the roadmap looks like. Like kind of all the basic things, like, is this a good team? Is there a community building behind it? And like, it's the same things that I would expect someone would look at Hxro before they were making some type of long-term like material investment into it. So that's kind of how I've been playing it. And, Alpha is one of those that definitely lined up, and Bancor is definitely one of those that lined up to me. Obviously, like, always looking to get more and more invested into like Serum, FTT, the Solana community as a whole. Not just because we're building there, but because I believe in what they're doing, and the teams that are building there are some of the most, some of the smartest and fast moving teams I've ever seen. So I'm really, kind of excited what's going on there. And all of that said, like another thing that's been a big driver of me is like, I have a friend who, they have a fund, and like they've been buying like all the right things for years now, and like they never sell anything. And when we talk to them, like Rob and I know these guys, and like we talk to them, and you hear about some of the multiples that they've made on some of their investments. It's staggering. Like there's no way anybody's out trading it. So really trying to take an approach there and trying to say like, well, where, like, because of how I'm thinking about when we're running Hxro, like where do I think the world is going in the next few years, and trying to get like a core position built in these things, and going like, yeah, this thing's trading at a fucking $80 million market cap, or set, like this thing's probably worth $3 billion if X, Y, and Z happen. And so, and just doing that, trying to stick with it. Now the cycle runs out and Bitcoin goes, on some massive march, and it's like, okay, well now we just got to go through our standard cycle reset. Yeah, I'll change, definitely change my narrative and shape positions, because you're going to need those dollars when it's not Christmas. So, because the Christmas does not last, it only lasts really one day, but doesn't last forever, right? And so, we're kind of that's kind of how I think about it. And Bancor's definitely been one. I agree with Rob. Like ZeroX is definitely one that falls into that camp, and those things kind of make me sleep well at night. And it's not to say that when there's like a quick opportunity somewhere to get in and out of something, I wouldn't do it. But I'm mostly trying to like put it to work now, like to where like I think the tech is starting to make a difference actually, and where over time, like you're going to get pumps, you're going to get sell-offs, but like over time, these are going to be the right plays to be making.
Love it. That's a really great breakdown on more of an investment thesis, perhaps higher time frame. And the nice thing is, as Messiah said earlier, sometimes you look back at this and you're like, man, I could have just held that and probably outperformed myself for all the time and effort and work. And I get this all the time where you put some time and effort and work into something and then you look back and there's just one bag that in all your trading you flipped and it probably outperformed all that time and effort. So you got to be really serious about making that decision. Is all of this trading, especially if you're just kind of learning and you're not too sure, should you be paper trading as a hobby while you just park it into some of these longer term things that you really believe in? That's probably a good topic for another day. Mm-hmm. The SAM basket speaks to me. I've created a little mini list on here of coins that are on FTX that are building on or around Solana. And, Ray is probably one of my bigger bags, but it's mostly farming. Maps is a little bit interesting. Kind of had a nice throwback through the blood last week and is moving again. 66 million users. I mean, we talked about that, but if I have to go shill of the day, I'm totally cheating here. I'm going through the tree. But my shill of the day is going to stick to basically where it started. The setup here is just too juicy. I think this is a under the radar SAM coin. It's a known. I mean, they announced FTX partnership, so it's not that under the radar, but perhaps it's not being priced as such. I think it's something like 40 to 50 million market cap. I liked it at 100. I love it at 50. And this is a patience play, though. I mean, this, the better way to play this, perhaps, if you want to really maximize opportunity cost, is I could be waiting for this to do whatever the fuck it wants and then wait for some big buy volume to come in, wait for that breakout to come in and then get out of pump chaser zone, get out of retrace, get a pullback, and then you're moving. For now, I'm fully comfy in this thing probably for, 3 weeks, month. I don't see that they don't become, a multi-100 million, 1 billion type thing. And I plan to get my free position out of here. That's a 6x to the chaos PRZ. So I can get a free position out of that. And
I mean, that's
you just need a
monster,
2x.
man.
Well,
in this chart,
when you pinch the chart, when you do the gunning and you have to flatten it so much just to see that level, I mean, I'll do a little taster on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
no,
guys,
it's
we've been here for 2 hours now. We still have 260 people watching. If you are here and you did enjoy this episode, please remember to hit the like button, subscribe to our channel. This isn't the only content that we're producing. It's one piece of many pieces of content that we're producing, actually. And I think if you go check out our other content and you did enjoy today's episode, you'll find that you enjoy the other content as well.
Yeah, appreciate that. If you guys want more info on that ID token, I did put out a video yesterday and there was a little shallow dive on that, lots of resources. For example, Pump Chaser Zone, Chaos PRZ, all these things, we're starting to put up a lot more tutorial stuff. So please check that out and follow all of us on Twitter. Our names are right here on the screen, I believe. No? Yeah, right up there, top right. Those are just, you can hit us up on Twitter at Real Hero Labs. Telegram is free. Lots of ways to reach out and hang out. And if you guys are over there on Facebook Live, we see you. Thanks for tuning in today, CCI. And unless anyone else has any final thoughts, we'll wrap right there. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Thanks for joining us. And always play from a position of strength. Take care.